Secrets in the dusk in the orange light of the late afternoon, Ines' small kitchen still smells of the empanadas she used to carefully knead, wrap, and sell on the street corner to raise Matthias. It was the kitchen of the hard days, where she counted every peso, gritted her teeth, and ate rice with salt so that her son could have enough meat. But now, sitting at the dining table, where Christmas laughter used to fill her stomach, Ines felt only coldness in her heart. Matthias, the son she loved more than herself, looked at her with strange eyes, his voice cold. "Mother, this house is ours now." Veronica, her daughter-in-law, smiled fakely, her eyes sparkling with cruelty. "It's time for you to realize your place." Ines, at the age of 69, still vividly remembers the days when she raised Matthias alone. That year, when Armando, her husband, left without explanation, she was only 26 years old, holding her 5-year-old son in a cramped apartment, with no money and no job. She stayed up all night, sewing clothes until her fingers bled, just so Matthias could have a decent uniform for school. In the morning, she cleaned the office, dust covering her hair, her hands calloused from chemicals. In the evening, she stood on the street corner, selling empanadas, smiling at customers but worried about her son's future. Every penny she earned, she spent on Matthias' books, clothes, delicious meals that she herself did not dare to dream of. She once wore the same old, torn dress for 3 years, just so Matthias would not feel inferior to his friends. "Mom, you are a superhero," little Matthias once said, hugging her, his eyes sparkling. Those words, like a precious gem she kept deep in her heart, were the motivation for her to overcome all bitterness. But time, like a wind, swept away the beautiful memories. Matthias grew up, graduated from university, married Veronica, the girl who had looked at Ines with contempt from the beginning. "Why does your mother have to live with us?" Veronica once asked Matthias, thinking that Ines couldn't hear. "She's old. She should go to a nursing home." Ines felt her heart being cut by a knife, but she kept quiet, thinking that her son's love would be enough to soothe her. She was wrong. Matthias began to change. The old hugs disappeared, replaced by complaints. "Mom, you're not young anymore. You should find a place that suits your age." Suitability? After 43 years of sacrifice, after sleepless nights, days with bloody hands, what she received was a request to leave the house she had bought with her sweat and tears. Ines bought the house 10 years ago, when she finally saved enough money after decades of hard work. It was her quiet pride, a testament to the years of gritted teeth. But Matthias and Veronica seemed to forget that the house was in her name. They rummaged through the papers, discussed selling the house, the big plan that had no place for her. "This is for grown-ups," Veronica said, her voice disdainful, as if Ines, at 69, were a naive child. Matthias did not meet her eyes, just muttered, "The house is too big for 3 people. Mother doesn't contribute as much as she used to." Contributed? She had contributed her whole life, her youth, her dreams, her health, just so that Matthias could have a future. And now he called her a burden. That fateful night, when Matthias slammed the table, his voice shaking with anger, "You've always been a burden. Since Dad left, you've been my problem." Ines felt her world collapse. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but it wasn't just sadness. There was something else, a fire in her chest, something she had been holding back for too long. She stood up, silently picked up her keys, and walked out of her beloved home. "Goodbye," she whispered, not looking back. The night was cold. She walked down the empty street, her bag heavy, her heart broken. But when the morning light broke, a bitter smile spread across her lips. They didn't know that she had secrets that would make them regret. Ines was more than just a self-sacrificing mother. She was a woman who had quietly built a financial empire, with the help of Gustavo, her accountant friend. Every penny she saved, she invested wisely, from cheap land to promising stocks. But she kept it a secret, not out of greed, but because she wanted to give Matthias a surprise gift, a secure future when she was no longer around. Ironically, that very sacrifice was turned into a weapon by her son and daughter-in-law. They thought she was poor, useless, worthy of being sent to a nursing home. Little did they know that, with one phone call to Gustavo, Ines could turn the tables and take back everything that was hers. Ines's story is a sad song about unrequited love, about forgotten sacrifice. But it is also a song about the potential strength of a woman who rose from the ashes of betrayal, to affirm that kindness does not mean weakness. Matthias and Veronica chose to despise her, but they did not expect that, in that dark night, they had awakened a completely new Ines, no longer the silent mother, but a woman ready to fight for herself. The secret is hidden. The power explodes from the darkness. In the dim light of the long nights, when Matthias is fast asleep, Ines sits at the old kitchen table, under the weak yellow light, carefully writing down each number in her notebook. Those numbers are not just money, but dreams, hopes, the future she silently builds for her son. No one knows, not even Matthias, that his poor mother, who used to eat rice with salt so he could eat meat, possesses a secret that can turn everything upside down, a financial empire built from sweat, tears, and perseverance. When Matthias was 5, when Armando left, Ines learned not only to survive, she learned to thrive. During the day, she cleaned the office, her hands swollen from chemicals. In the afternoon, she sewed, pricking her fingers with needles until they bled. At night, she sold empanadas on the street corner, her smile hiding her worries. But late at night, when the city slept, she learned accounting from borrowed books, from the advice of Gustavo, an old friend who worked as an accountant. Ines, you can do more, Gustavo had said, handing her his first savings book. From then on, every extra peso she had, she did not spend, but invested. A small plot of land in the suburbs, a few penny stocks, an old house bought and sold for double the price. She did everything quietly, like an artist painting a picture that no one saw. She did not tell Matthias, not because she did not trust him, but because she wanted to give him the biggest surprise. She dreamed of the day when he would realize that his mother was not just a hard-working woman, but someone who had built a solid future for him. Her savings account grew, from a few thousand pesos to tens of thousands of dollars, and then beyond. She bought the house on Calle San Martin in 1845 in cash, without borrowing a penny. But let Matthias think it was a mortgage, so he wouldn't suspect anything. I didn't want you to know, she once whispered to Gustavo, because I wanted you to love me for me, not for money. But that secret, that power, became a weapon when Matthias and Veronica betrayed her. The night they kicked her out, Ines was no longer the resigned mother. She called Gustavo, her voice unwavering, transfer $86,000 to the main account, and complete the transaction of the house in Colonia del Sacramento. The next morning, when Matthias and Veronica woke up in the house they thought was theirs, they didn't know that everything had changed. Ines, the mother they considered a burden, had transferred ownership, taken it all back. The house, the property, the power, all were hers, as she had silently built them up over decades. Ines's strength was not just in money. It was in patience, in long nights of calculation, in the courage to keep a secret to protect her son's love. But when that love turned to contempt, the secret became a flame. She walked into the mortgage office, wearing her best dress, and faced a panicked Matthias. "Mom, how did you get the money to buy a house in cash?" he asked, his voice trembling. Ines smiled coldly. "From where you earned the money for my college education, for my car, for my wedding." She opened her phone, showing him a balance of $680,000, just a fraction of what she owned. Matthias was stunned, but she did not stop. "You think I'm poor, but I'm the only one in this house who is financially secure." Ines's secret was not just money, but intelligence, resilience, and the ability to turn suffering into strength. She studied accounting in the shadows, invested in silence, and when the time came, she rose like a queen, no longer the invisible mother. Matthias and Veronica underestimated her, but they did not know that, in the darkness of sacrifice, Ines had forged a strength enough to make them pay. Justice is not revenge, but the wind that sweeps away injustice. Under the silver moonlight, Ines walked on the empty street, her bag heavy, her heart broken but her eyes flashing a strange light. That night, when Matthias slammed the table, his voice cold as ice, "Mother, hand over the keys and leave," Ines lost not only her house, she lost her faith in the love she had spent her life cultivating. But in that brokenness, a smoldering fire burned, not to destroy, but to reclaim justice, to protect the dignity that she had let others trample on for so long. Ines did not seek revenge. Revenge was blind anger, the desire to hurt someone else just to ease her own pain. Ines's justice was different. It was truth, a light shining into the dark corners of betrayal. When she left the house on Calle San Martin, she did not cry and beg. She called Gustavo, her accountant friend, and calmly ordered, transfer $86,000 to the main account. Complete the purchase of the house in Colonia del Sacramento. It was the first step, not to show off the fortune she had quietly amassed, but to remind Matthias and Veronica that they had been wrong to underestimate the woman who had devoted her life to them. The next morning, as Matthias and Veronica slept in the house they thought was theirs, Ines turned the tables. She contacted the mortgage bank, demanding that the transfer of ownership be processed. "The house is mine," she told Patricia, the bank clerk, her voice calm but sharp as a knife. Matthias, when he confronted his mother in the office, paled when he learned the truth. The house was not his, but Ines's, bought with cash from her years of hard work. "Mother, how did you get the money?" he stammered. Ines simply replied, "Since the days when you ate rice with salt so I could eat meat." The words were not meant to hurt, but to expose the truth that all her sacrifices had been turned into an excuse for contempt by Matthias and Veronica. Ines's justice did not stop at getting the house back. She knew that if she kept quiet, Matthias and Veronica would continue to portray her as weak and useless. So she chose to go public. In an Instagram live broadcast, in front of thousands of viewers, she recounted the night she was evicted, playing a recording of Matthias's cold voice, "Give me the keys and get out." She showed the house's ownership papers, the receipts, and the investments she had secretly built. "I pay 80% of the house," she said, her voice unwavering, "while my son saves every penny." The audience erupted, not because of the money, but because of the truth behind it. A mother betrayed by her own family. She didn't do this to humiliate Matthias or Veronica, even though the pain still burned in her heart. She did it to balance the scales, to show the world that women like her, the silent mothers, the ones who make unrecognized sacrifices, are not a burden. When Matthias calls, distraught by the criticism, she replies, "How does it feel to be harassed in your own home, son?" It's not a gloating response, but a question that forces him to face the consequences. Ines's justice is to let Matthias and Veronica know that, in choosing to despise her, they have sown the seeds of their own downfall. In the garden of the new villa, as Matthias kneels to beg for forgiveness, Ines does not relent. "The family I deserve," she says, "will appreciate me before they know I have money." She disinherits Matthias, not to punish him, but to protect the values she has learned, that self-respect cannot be compromised. Ines's justice is a breath of fresh air, sweeping away the injustices she has endured, and opening the way for her to be herself a strong woman, no longer needing anyone's approval. One story, millions of hearts, and a spreading flame of inspiration. In a brightly lit room, Ines sat in front of her phone screen, her fingers trembling as she pressed the Instagram live button. She had no idea that, from the pain of being betrayed by her son and daughter-in-law, her story would touch millions of hearts, especially those of older women who had been looked down upon by their families. With a calm but powerful voice, she recounted the night Matthias kicked her out of the house, playing his cold recording, "Hand over the keys and go away." She showed the world the house papers in her name, the receipts proving that she had paid for almost all the family expenses. "I am not a burden," she said, her eyes lighting up. "I am the one who sacrificed my whole life so that my son could have everything." Within hours, the broadcast went viral, attracting hundreds of thousands of viewers, and Ines's story became a beacon of light for those who had been forgotten. She's not just telling stories to demand justice. Ines wants to send a message. Older women are not shadows in the family, but people who deserve respect. Her videos reach women everywhere, from the back streets of Colombia to the remote villages of Spain. "I let my children take advantage of me for too long," wrote a 65-year-old mother. "Thanks to you, I learned to say no." An elderly woman in Argentina wrote, "I used to think I was worthless because my son told me so. You showed me that I was worth something." Each message is a piece of the puzzle, extending Ines's story into a movement. She has become a symbol of restored dignity, of the courage to set boundaries with her own family. Her book, Silent 20 Years, was born from her tearful diary entries and became a global bestseller. In it, she tells not only of Matthias and Veronica's betrayal, but also of her own journey of self-discovery, from a silent mother to a woman who dares to live for herself. The book has inspired millions of older women, encouraging them to embrace their worth and not accept being seen as a burden. Self-esteem is not selfishness, Ines writes, it is survival. It has become a mantra, echoed in the talks she is invited to give, from small conferences in her hometown to international television shows. When she meets Alicia, a young single mother, in the garden of her new villa, Ines sees a shadow of herself. Alicia tells of the criticism from her family, of the 2 jobs she has to support her son Oscar. She gave me the courage, Alicia says, her eyes lighting up, not to let my family make me feel small. Ines smiles, puts her hand on her shoulder. A real family will make you grow up. In that moment, Ines is not only an inspiration, but also a person who inspires the belief that every woman, no matter what age, has the right to live with dignity. Ines's story spreads through social media, through handwritten letters, through hugs from strangers at events. She has been nominated for an international award for changing the way society views older women. A foundation in Colombia was created to support mothers abandoned by their families, receiving an anonymous $100,000 donation, which Ines knew, deep down, was her way of giving back to her community. She stood before Congress, told her story, and helped push for legislation to protect the elderly from exploitation by their families. From an invisible mother, Ines became a national voice, inspiring women around the world to stand up, to love themselves, and to say, I am worthy. Harsh consequences, glorious freedom, and a no silence. Ines, in the red sunset on the terrace of her new villa, Ines sat sipping coffee, looking down at the twinkling lights of the city. There, in a hidden corner, Matthias and Veronica struggled in their cramped apartment, the result of their own contempt for her. The night they kicked Ines out of the house, calling her a burden and demanding to take the house she had bought with her sweat and tears, they had no idea that they were reaping the wind and sowing the wind. But for Ines, their downfall was not joy, it was justice, and above all, it was the door to a freedom she had never dreamed of. The consequences came to Matthias and Veronica like a whirlwind. After Ines went public with the truth on social media, releasing a recording of Matthias coldly saying, "Hand over the keys and go," and Veronica calling her a freeloader, the two became the focus of criticism. The video went viral, attracting millions of views, and the crowd was unforgiving. Matthias lost his job at the company when his colleagues recognized him in the video, an unfilial son who had betrayed his mother. Veronica, who worked as a cosmetics saleswoman, was turned away by customers, and work gradually dried up. They had to move twice, fleeing the neighbors' curious stares, the whispers, "That's the couple who kicked mom out." The small apartment in a lower middle-class neighborhood, which they rented with their meager savings, was a testament to their ruin. "We have nothing left," Matthias had told Veronica, his voice trembling, in the discount store where they bought their second-hand clothes. But Ines, overhearing, thought only, "They lost everything because they chose to despise what I built." Meanwhile, Ines had entered a new world, one in which she was no longer the silent, self-sacrificing mother. The villa on the hill, with its 5 bedrooms, swimming pool, and flower-filled garden, was a symbol of her regained freedom. She bought expensive dresses, wore diamond earrings, and lived the life she had only dreamed of for Matthias. "I deserve it," she whispered, standing in front of the mirror, not seeing for the first time the haggard woman of her hard years. Her book 20 Years of Silence became a bestseller, bringing her story of self-esteem to millions of women. She accepted interviews, spoke before Congress, and became a symbol for those who had been overlooked by their families. Every letter from a stranger, every hug from a woman like Alicia, was proof that Ines had not only found herself, but also given hope to others. Matthias, when he last visited her, was a shadow of the once proud man. Slovenly, with dark circles under his eyes, he knelt and begged for forgiveness. "Mother, I have lost everything. Please help me." But Ines, whose heart had turned to steel after so many heartbreaks, simply replied, "I chose this path when I kicked you out of the house." She disinherited him, transferring his assets to charities that supported older women. It was not revenge, but her way of protecting her newfound freedom. "Family is not blood," she said, "but love and respect which you did not give me." Ines's freedom was the light after the storm. She no longer feared loneliness, no longer feared judgment. From the terrace, she gazed at the stars, as light-hearted as the 26-year-old girl she had been, but stronger, because she now lived for herself. Matthias and Veronica suffered the consequences of their ingratitude, but Ines, with her radiant self-esteem, had found her true home not within four walls, but within her heart, where she could finally be herself, no longer silent. Lessons from the scars. Love is never worth paying with your own self. In the gentle sunset, as Ines sat on the terrace of her villa looking down at the sparkling city, she no longer saw the haggard figure of her mother who used to eat rice with salt to feed her son. Instead, she saw a 69-year-old woman, her heart scarred but radiant with freedom. Ines's story is not only a journey to reclaim justice, but also a haunting reminder. Love, no matter how deep, is never worth trading with self-respect. She spent 43 years sacrificing for Matthias, from nights of sewing until she bled, days of cleaning the office until exhausted, just so he could have a bright future. But when he looked at her with contempt, called her a burden and kicked her out of the house she built, Ines realized a painful truth. Unrequited love, even motherly love, is only a burden that crushes the soul. She used to think that sacrifice was a duty, that a mother had to endure silently to preserve her family. But walking on the cold street at night, her bag heavy, she understood that she was wrong. Love does not mean letting others trample on your dignity. The biggest lesson from Ines is the courage to say enough. When she went public, playing the recording of Matthias coldly kicking her mother out, she didn't just reclaim the house, she reclaimed herself. Every step she took, from transferring her assets to standing in front of millions of people to tell her story, was a declaration. No one, not even your loved ones, has the right to make you feel worthless. I don't regret loving Matthias, she whispered to the night wind. I regret not loving myself sooner. Self-respect, she learned, is not selfishness, it is the breath, the light, the thing that keeps you standing when the world turns its back. Ines's story touched my heart, as it has touched millions of other women. It reminded me that in relationships, whether family or friendship, true love must be accompanied by respect. If you only give and never receive, if you have to shrink so that others can shine, that is not love, that is destruction. Ines taught me that, no matter what age you are, you can still stand up, hold your head high, and choose to live for yourself. When she saw Matthias kneeling for forgiveness, she did not relent, not because her heart was cold, but because she had learned that forgiveness does not mean accepting being hurt again. Now, when Ines looks at the stars, she no longer fears being alone. She has found true family not in blood, but in letters from strangers, hugs from women like Alicia, and in her own heart. Her lesson resonates like a sad but powerful song. Love, but never let love make you forget your own worth. Because when you value yourself, the whole world will learn to value you.